Hi friends, today's practice is going to be a restorative one. So it's going to be super mellow, very gentle, great for all levels, and great for relaxing. You'll need some props, and you don't need to have a legitimate yoga bolster or yoga blocks. Oftentimes a stack of blankets or towels is really all you need. Maybe some books if you want some harder surfaces for block purposes. As always, there's a playlist linked down below, so you can hit play on that and we'll begin. All right. Welcome, friends. So today we'll get started in a seat, but before we start moving, we'll just do some general housekeeping things. So because all of us are practicing from home in this moment, you might not have access to like a bolster pillow like this one, but thankfully lots of household items are just fine replacements. So I have a couple of options here, and I'll give you a few moments to like round up what you need. But what I really like if I don't have a bolster handy is to take a couple of blankets and fold them up so they're, kind of same idea, kind of dense matter that you can fold your body over. And if you don't have, a bunch of throws lying around, then you can also just use bath towels. Same with pillows. If you have like an overabundance or like a throw pillow collecting problem, then you'll have lots of props that you can use. We're going to do some poses where I'll have the bolster, like your main bolster or your main towel burrito, resting up on an angle like this. So again, you can just maneuver as many pillows, blankets as you'd like to make that work for you. If you have books handy, those are also great to just shift the elevation, the angle of things to make it work. We get really creative, right? During the COVID days, this is what it's for. There's also, if you have books handy, you can also kind of just slip them into any nooks and crannies that feel like they could be a little bit more supported. So like when we come into certain poses, if your head feels like it's floating in space and you're really over efforting to hold yourself up, then just slip like anything, a book, a blanket, a pillow, a cat, whatever you have on hand. And the idea for these poses, if you haven't done a restorative class before, is to make sure that it's really supportive, that your body's not efforting to hold itself up against the force of gravity. Sometimes I joke that it's like a glorified power nap, but my teacher would be very angry at me about that because he's like, no, you have to stay awake and stay conscious and present through the whole restorative yoga experience. Like that's where the magic happens. But so like I said, if you haven't done a restorative class before, I hope you enjoy it. It's 5 or 6 postures that we'll be taking, and we hold for an extended period of time so that like on a musculoskeletal level, we're passively stretching the muscles, of course, just using gravity and some proper positioning and alignment to let that all unfold. And then once that's all addressed, we can start to, of course, get to deeper layers and start to become familiar with the conversation between our muscles, our outside expression, and our nervous system, which of course controls it all. And hopefully with some restful postures and some deep breathing and just kind of staying longer than we're used to staying, we can start to actually have an influence on how our nervous system is relating to us and to our experience. So we'll begin just to activate a little bit. Lay onto your back. Thank you for coming. And it'll be pretty heavy, pretty sleepy for most of the practice, but for now, come onto your spine and float your feet up towards the ceiling, but keep your knees nice and bent and float your arms up too, and keep your elbows pretty soft, fingers and fingertips and all the bones and joints of all of these aspects of your body. Let them all go super lax. And you soften into the joints so that you can feel this sense that you're even though your arms and your legs are floating, you're not necessarily the one holding them there. There's not too much effort. There's a space when we can stack our joints efficiently that things become very light. So rather than you holding your arms up, imagine and sense that they're just simply being held. And same with the legs. Like, find that space where it feels very supportive to let your legs float up, and this might take some playing with the position of your pelvis or how straight or bent your legs are. And just start to take a few breaths without necessarily deepening them or forcing them or over-efforting anything. Getting a sense for where there might be resistance, gripping where there doesn't need to be, holding where there doesn't need to be. Let's take a full breath in through the nose. And then a full sigh breath out from your mouth. Okay, get a little light around your edges. And then just begin to shake at your wrists and at your ankles. The knees might kind of bounce. The shoulder blades might wriggle side to side as you take a little bit of vibration through your arms and through your legs. And then start to shake a little bit faster, so allowing your wrists to get a little bit more lax, so your fingers are kind of just following suit. And same with the ankles. You can feel your calf muscles jiggle and soften away from any gripping. Keep shaking. And then keep shaking and take a deep breath in through your nose. And exhale, sigh from your mouth. And then shake a little bit faster, like you're flicking something sticky off of your fingers and your toes. Take a deep, full breath in. And an audible sigh breath. Okay, now this part, you just pause so that you can feel the tingles and the hum and the buzz under your skin. And then the pulse. And then the settling back to a quietude and a stillness and a calm. And gently float your feet down towards the ground, bend your knees. Place one hand onto your ribs, your lower ribs, and one hand onto your belly, and you can let your knees fall in towards one another. And come and meet your breath now. Letting the inhales be full and expansive. And the exhale soft and gentle. And it's as though every breath that pours in, it illuminates and offers a little bit of room for attention and awareness to where we might be holding, gripping. And with every breath out, piece by piece by piece, we start to let it go. Soften our grip and create space for something lighter. So keep breathing just like that. And creating space to feel what you feel, what you feel. And without shifting anything or changing anything, just noticing what the story is. where the holding is, where the mind is. And maybe let this, next little while together be just an opportunity to let it be seen rather than needing to fix it, figure it out. And gently, slowly make your way into the fetal position. Draw your knees into your chest, roll onto your side. And then again, we'll really indulge in the spaces in between today, so let yourself be fully cradled and held here. Like your limbs are draping over the side of a branch. And in that slow, sweet way, start to press yourself upright. So whatever hand's on top, press it down. Grow yourself upright. And then we'll start to work with the props. So stay, kind of quiet and inward as you transition. You'll take your bolster or your, stack of things that are bolstering your body for this practice. And we'll start with it crossways across your mat or your space. And we're going to come up on top of it. So eventually we'll lower ourselves down onto our backs. And there's many things that can happen with the bolster. What we're going to try to do is keep the tip of our tailbone onto the prop so that when you lay down, your tailbone will be angling to like where the wall in front of you and the ceiling meet. So it's tipping more upward rather than bending up and over your prop. Okay, so you might scoot your bum forward more so than you'd think onto your bolster, and then lay yourself down. And again, your tailbone or your lower back's already kind of in a back bend, so it'll veer in that general direction. So you might scoot yourself a little bit higher up the prop so that you can feel it angling more upward, putting your lower back into a little bit of flexion. And first, just take a few moments to settle into this shape. It might feel more supportive for you right off the bat to let your feet go a little wider and your knees again fall in towards one another in the constructive rest pose. And again, we have time to sort of explore the transitions and the spaces in between. So in this moment, bring your attention to the root, to the base of your spine. And the qualities and the texture of the sensations that you might be feeling here. And for some people, this area of the body is super light and spacious. And for some, just depending on, what you do in the physical or energetic realm, it could be quite dense, stiff, heavy. So let these first few moments just kind of be a taking inventory of what is your experience. Because that will kind of guide your way into how you meet this practice, how you meet this body. And then we practice trying to access each posture with the kindness and compassion that yoga really asks of us. So the first variation from this shape that we'll take is our knee into our chest, starting with the right leg. So tailbone is still tipping up towards the junction of the ceiling and the wall in front of you. You'll draw your right knee up towards your chest, and if there's a little bit of extra tightness in your body tonight, then you can hold on to the back of your right leg, like more towards the hamstring, or you can take the top of your shin, and it's just a comfort thing. Your upper back's nice and wide. Try not to activate your right foot at all, so you can let your heel fall towards your bum. And you don't even really need to activate your arms to pull your right knee up towards your shoulder, thigh towards the chest. You just really need to do less. You let your arms go heavier, let your upper back go wider. And then just explore what it is that is happening here in the body via the compression of your right hip crease. And you might be feeling, even at this point, a little bit of tension creeping across the top of your left thigh. And that is the intention. If that's a good amount of sensation for you, then just stay. Otherwise, you can start to slide your left heel forward. And this will really start to offer some reprieve for any tightness in the hip flexor muscles. And sometimes they get tight because they're overworked from activity, and sometimes they get tight because they're inhibited all day from, doing things like sitting. And sometimes they're inhibited because our body has these wonderful mechanisms that, protect us. So when we feel like we're in danger, when our nervous system senses that something isn't, quite in harmony with what feels best for us, the body starts to contract and protect. And this results in like a full-fledged rounding forward of the front body from the chest all the way into our abdominals. And of course, some of these tight hip flexor muscles, they attach right at the base of our spine. So all of this is being caved in and contracted, whether it's a muscular or an energetic thing. It's true for many people. So find an expression now as we land in stillness that reminds your body from the outside to the inside that it's safe to open up in this way. That you'll continue to put the effort in to breathe through any discomfort, any information that rises up to the surface. You'll just hold space for it. And now that we've landed for a little bit, you might start to deepen your relationship to the breath, not necessarily needing to make it fuller or louder or more effortful, but rather just deepening your attention to it so that you can start to sense the sense of ascension and expansion every time you breathe in, creating space. And then every time you breathe out, you really follow the expiration down a little bit deeper, like you're meeting the force of gravity with full trust. So you start to feel your muscles soften and open through this kinder inner dialogue. And even if the oscillation between expansion and surrender starts to become a little bit more subtle over time as we start to approach our depth in this physical shape, and keep your attention intimately to those spaces of the subtle now. It's where we start to communicate more deeply with our inner workings, our subtle body. Let's take one more full breath in right here as you are. And exhale to soften in. Last little bits of residue that need to clear out, let them go. And then gently start to unweave your fingertips, placing your right foot down towards the ground. And then once that feels steady, drag your left heel in so knees are bent. Toe heel your feet to the wide edges of your mat and let your knees fall in towards one another. And then again, just feel the flush, the reverberation, any tingles, any buzzing. Let's take a full breath in. And exhale, let it go. And then slowly, sweetly, we'll come to the other side. Bring your right heel underneath of your right knee as you draw your left knee up into your chest. Interlacing your fingers at the shin, or again, holding the hamstring, letting your calf close in over your fingertips is fine. Relax your foot and relax your ankle so there's no over efforting in this area. And then let your arms go heavy, so you don't need to pull down in any way. Again, you just fall into that sense of softening, falling into gravity, and letting the movement of inhale and exhale invite you deeper into the shape. And then address the tension across the top of your right thigh now. And if it's, breathable and sustainable, you can stay as you are or start to slide your right heel forward just until, you feel a level of tension that feels like medicine. Try to relax that leg completely. And then we come back into this rhythm of the breathing, full deep breaths in. And a sense of surrender as you exhale and fall in a little bit heavier. Coming deeply attuned to where you're holding tension and how you're holding it. And then attuning to whether, there's a dense story or drama around anything that's manifested in your body. And if you can take this time to rewrite those lines in, kinder tone with your breath, guiding you a little bit deeper without any need to force or struggle or strain. And I say this often, but of course the mind will wander. We might get flickers of timelines and stories and circumstances that are far from this one. So rather than that, letting that be like another layer of resistance or judgment, just do the work to call yourself back with all of these tools of the breathing, of intention. And it starts, with our most dense matter, just what we feel in this physical body, where we are in space. Finding stillness there and then starting to gaze down into the depths of what is underneath and what is real in our experience. Staying with the breath, the sinking into the shape becomes a little bit more subtle over time. But of course, we'll embrace the subtle so that we can see a little bit more intimately with this aspect of ourselves. You fall a little bit heavier into the shape for the last few breaths. Ask your body if it's holding on in any way that it doesn't need to. And be here for the experience of its very intelligent responses. One more deep breath in. And slowly, as you exhale, unclasp your fingers, replacing your left foot down to the ground. Slow drag your right knee in. Let your knees fall in, heels go out, and then one more time, just let yourself linger in the space between. Fall a little heavier. The whole skeleton sink. Skin soften. Take a full breath in. And exhale. So for the exit, we'll heel toe the feet underneath of the knees. Put a little bit of pressure into your feet and roll your tailbone more forwards until you feel the weight into your heels. Lift up the hips just enough so that you can press your bolster downwards so that it lands underneath of your knees. It's almost like Shavasana here. And I like to just wiggle the hips side to side. Or you can, again, plant your feet and just roll your tailbone forwards and arch the spine backwards. And just give it a moment to neutralize. Slowly bend the knees into the chest. Roll onto one side or the other into your fetal position. Draw your knees in towards your heart. And we'll rise on up into a seat. Okay, so the next series of poses is intended to get into the sideline of your body. So we'll start on the left hip, or you'll start on, yes, the left hip. I'm going to bring my bolster over here. You'll sit up onto the prop. So left hip is up on top of your bolster, pile of pillows, pile of blankets. And you'll draw your left elbow down towards the ground and then stretch your arm out ahead of you. I'm going to put another couple of items underneath of my head so that it's held and my neck isn't hanging in space. So knees are bent, left hip is on the bolster, and left arm is reaching out in front of you. Okay, so from there, you can start to straighten out your bottom leg. And if all of that is checking in, you can start to straighten out your top leg. And so what you should be feeling here is a lengthening across the outer and top edge of your right hip. And what might bring the sensation just a little bit further is to cross your top leg back behind you, and you'll get into some of the muscles of the deep lower back on the lateral side. That can be a little bit intense, and if this leg is floating in any way, then either prop it up with another pillow book situation, or you can just stack your feet on top of one another again. Once you do that, let your knees soften so that, they're not super active. Their legs are super relaxed, in fact. So just to recap, left hip is up onto the bolster, head is on the blankets or books so that your neck is nice and relaxed. And the top leg can either be stacked on top of the bottom one, knees really soft and bent, or same, knees really soft and bent, the top leg just crosses back behind. Okay, and then this is where we'll stay. The last option that I'll give you in this pose, I don't have much room here because of the wall, but if you have room up and overhead, you can reach your right arm up so that the crook of your elbow falls onto the skull. If you feel any like pinching or tingles that are coming up through the side of your waist from there, just let it go and bring your arm down by your side again. And as you settle in, start to invite your breath up and across the curve of your hip. Many of us experience some tightness into the IT band area, and you know, we can foam roll and knead out that tension as much as we want, but a lot of it comes from an overworked muscle that's just up by the hip bone called the TFL. It's the muscle that the IT band fascia kind of connects into. So when that gets tight, it pulls everything up and our knees get wonky and our backs get sore. So it's worthwhile opening up and lengthening through this muscle. So as always, it takes a few moments to settle in. Take your time, there's no rush. Once you're comfortable in the shape, you might start to invite some deeper breaths. Notice if you can soften your abdomen so that the breath isn't just coming into the upper cavity of your chest, but it's also moving, you know, into the width of your ribs. And of course, the tension collects from this very complex conversation happening through the entirety of our bodies. So where you're feeling tension could be a manifestation of, you know, holding patterns somewhere else in the body. So to address the stretching, to address the specific shapes is one thing, but if we can address the system as a whole, where we might be gripping a little bit too tightly because we don't feel like safe and held, when there's overwhelm, we can address that. If we can address our stress and our brilliant systems that protect us from that, from what could be a threat, if we could remind our bodies that we are safe, we are here to give it breath, to give it rest, then maybe the whole body as like an ecosystem can start to fall into harmony. Taking a few more deep breaths in and a few more heavy sighs to soften in a little bit more fully. Give yourself space for one more deep breath in. And exhaling, give back your breath, soften your grip. Okay, so rather than coming straight to the other side, we're going to move just simply down the prop, so bend your knees. This time the swoop of your waist curves over the curve of the bolster. This will get more into those deep low back muscles on the lateral side that we talked about, but also the space between your ribs a little bit more intentionally. So I like to have the knees bent for this one. Left arm can reach out ahead of you, or you can have the elbow bent like so. And then this one's a really nice one to reach your arm up and overhead. And you can let your hand fall down towards the ground, or if it feels more supportive, to have it, supported by a bolster or whatever you have handy. And you can place something underneath of your hands so that, we can start to get into, of course, like all of these spaces that we don't often reach, the intercostal muscles between the ribs, but also like the lats and some of the muscles that frame out the armpit. We just don't get our breath. They don't get the opportunity to lengthen as much as, our hamstrings and hips and things that get all the attention. But I'll say it again, everything is interwoven. So if we can start to look at this body as a very intriguing, intimate conversation, we want to read it like a poem, read between all of the lines, not just the obvious. So once you've landed, maybe just adjust the head and neck, making sure that your neck is nice and comfortable. Letting your hips be very heavy. So there's a nice broad curve from your right armpit all the way down to your right hip. And then move your breath there. Letting the whole trunk and so the whole body breathe and oscillate with each exchange of your breath. And with each out breath, of course, softening where you can consciously soften. So that you can consciously breathe a little bit more fully. So that you can send your body all of the, love notes and messages that it requires to know that it's safe to ungrip any unconscious holding. And here we are for a few more breaths. Take them slowly so that you can feel where they land and feel where they soften you in. Gently bring your arm down by your side. Might need a little wiggle and a roll to come back to life. And then we'll press the right hands down to help ourselves upright. Just take a moment seated in any which way, just to, again, let it land. You might feel a little bit longer up your right side body. Certainly a little bit more awake. So just take a moment to feel the shift from side to side. One side feels more light, one side feels more dense. And then we'll balance it out. So I like to just bring the bolster to the other side, and books and blankets and whatever you have. So the first pose, of course, we're going to come up so that the right hip is right on top of the bolster. Knees are stacked and soft, and the right elbow first is going to come down towards the ground, so I can put my blankets where I need them to catch the head. And then the right arm can reach out ahead of you. Let your head fall down onto the props. And from here, you start to address the tension up over the left hip now. So of course we're not built symmetrically, so there probably will be a shift in tension side to side. So honor that. It doesn't need to look exactly as it did on the other side. If this is enough for you, stay. Otherwise, legs can go more straight, and the top leg maybe crosses behind you, and it doesn't have to be much for you to start to feel into the deep low back muscles on your left side now. Side waist, and then all the way down into the outer edge of your left hip. If you like it, left arm can reach up and overhead. And this will offer a little bit more lengthening, almost like you can feel the space from the outer edge of your left foot all the way to your left fingertips with the stretch. And so we'll settle in for a few. Allowing the body to, soften its curves over the curve of the bolster. Notice if there's any resisting, gripping against gravity. And we go through these shifts in the restorative practice, through the transitions. The body is very aware that something is happening that is new and is different when we come from the space of deep rest to the space of transition. So it takes a few moments, a few breaths to settle back in. But once you find your sweet spot, your breathable spot, just be here in it. Notice the urges to shift and fidget and make it just so. And without, of course, judging or making that wrong, you just ask what the trigger is, what the motivation is to move out of this moment, to get out of the body, out of the stillness. Can you just stay? Stay with breath. Captivated by sensations in your body right now. Stay breathing. Come back. Keep gently calling yourself back. And we stay for the breath in. And stay for your exhale too. And before we go too far, we'll slip down the bolster. There's a little bit of engagement. There's a little bit of activation in our nervous system. Something's happening. So you slide down so that the curve of your waist meets the curve of the bolster now. Knees can stay nice and bent here. And of course, the left arm can reach up and overhead. Draping your arm over the skull without needing to hold it up in any way. So there might be a something underneath of your left hand, just to elevate the wrist so that there's not too much of a stretch or a strain. And intent is everything. So draw your intention to the space that holds the outer edge of your hip and trace it all the way up the curve of your waist, up along the arm, forearm, fingertips. Where is the holding? Where can you invite a softening? Where can you give way a little bit deeper? Invite that in. Soften what you can. Come home to this body and let everything be felt. One more deep breath in here. And let it go all the way. And gently, slowly slide your left hand down onto the bolster. A little bit of engagement through your core, through your center. Tuck your chin and press down, rise on up. And then again, find a moment to be still in a seat that comes to you. Feel either side of your spine. either shoulder blade, the junction where your neck meets your head, and the junction where your spine meets your sacrum. And we'll take all of this space down with us into a heart opener. So have your blankets placed so that, blankets, books, whatever, placed so that they'll catch your head in the back bend. We're gonna come facing away from the prop, soles of the feet down towards the ground, and then lean up and over your bolster like you're gonna watch Netflix on it. And then draw your elbows back behind the prop so that they're not on top of it while we're doing the pose. Elbows come back behind you, and then your arms slip off to either side. From there, you can lay your head down onto the bolster. I like to have my knees bent and knocking in for this shape, but once you settle in and take a few breaths in it, you might find that stretching your legs out feels really supportive. So of course, we're reversing generally the most pronounced natural curve of our spine through the thoracic. And we're reversing, those holding patterns that we assume, whether it's just, a result of the environment that we work in, a little caved forward, a little hyper-focused. Or again, whether it's, a result of some energetic protection mechanism that all of our bodies have and many of our bodies resort to, which, results in a society of human beings with tight chests, sore necks, closed off heart spaces. So again, from the outside to the inside, we're reminding our bodies that, we can hold this shape too. And as we hold in the stillness, as we quiet and bring kindness to our thoughts, the body starts to remember this natural way of being. Move your breath here. Let your abdomen rise and fall as you breathe so that the chest muscles, the neck muscles, the space between your rib muscles can have a moment of ease so they don't have to work so hard to do the breathing. We'll stay like that for a little while. And then ask your heart space to open, crack a little wider from your sternum bone to your upper arm bones. Can you let that space get softer? So that each breath in and out offers it a little bit of a deeper opening a deeper release. And then maybe stretch your wings even a millimeter wider and let this be your new normal holding space. Front body wide open and receptive. Find ease in this next breath in. Peace with this next breath out. And when the thoughts arise, rather than, pushing them away, hushing them, listen, watch what is playing out, what is asking to be seen. And let it be seen in this kind container. Taking 3 more full deep breaths in and out. And before you move a single muscle, just feel the energy of the heart space, where there is lightness, where there was heaviness. Begin to breathe a little bit more fully. And if your legs are straight, please bend your knees so that the soles of your feet come down to the ground. The transition will be a roll off to one side or the other. Take a moment to press into your bottom elbow to slip the bolster out from underneath of you, and then come into the fetal position. Knees hug into your chest. Round out your spine as much as you can. And then, as soon as you can, fall into stillness. Allowing the back of your heart to breathe now. Allowing the connective tissue around our heart space to knit back together a little bit more intelligently with space. And then finally, we'll come into Shavasana, so gently press yourself upright. And this is where all the blankets come in handy. So take your bolster or your makeshift bolster underneath of your knees. It's nice to have something underneath of your head too, so that the chin doesn't jut up towards the ceiling as we lie back. And if you have a blanket or something that you can cover yourself with, then tuck yourself in. We have time for Shavasana today. So get yourself as comfy as can be. Lay yourself down. You can take any last little shapes that you may need, whether that's knees into your chest. Even a happy baby is totally fair game. And eventually we fall into the stillness. And of course, it may take a moment or two, but let's meet each other with breath. Take a full inhale. And a full exhale. You can even sigh your breath. And again, deep breath in. And exhale, let that go. And this last one will hold, retain the breath at the very top. Keep it and relax the skin, relax your weight. Take another sip on top. And as you exhale, fully release. Give way to gravity. Full body, mind surrender here. And I'll bring you back when it's time. This is from Mary Oliver. It's called On Meditating, sort of. Meditation, so I've heard, is best accomplished if you entertain a certain strict posture. Frankly, I prefer just to lounge under a tree. So why should I think I could ever be successful? Some days I fall asleep or land in that even better place, half asleep, where the world, spring, summer, autumn, winter, flies through my mind in its hearty ascent and its uncompromising descent. So I just lie like that, while distance and time reveal their true attitudes. They never heard of me and never will or ever need to. Of course, I wake up finally, thinking how wonderful to be who I am, made out of earth and water, my own thoughts, my own fingerprints, all that glorious temporary stuff. Start to breathe a little bit more deeply. Wiggle, trace your fingers and your toes through the air. Just like intimately entranced by the inner workings. Magic of sensation. To be able to observe this relationship between body and breath and everything else. You might bring a big stretch in, reach your arms overhead, reach your legs long. You may draw your knees in towards your chest to roll one last time into the fetal position. Hold yourself there. Take a moment to drop and drape. And keep those sweet, heavy qualities with you as you rise up into your seat. No hurry, no rush. Soften your eyes to close one more time. And if it lands with you, place one hand onto the center of your heart. And as you breathe, can you soften, settle into the wonder of this space where your heartbeat and your breath current collide? How wonderful to be who you are. We'll meet with one full breath in through the nose. And exhale, let that breath go. So wonderful to practice with you. Thank you so much for joining, and I look forward to seeing you guys next time. Namaste.